is Mark Gunn Media.
Hit it!
Welcome to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. I'm your host, Mark Gunn. The views expressed on this program are those of the host and guests and not necessarily reflective of anyone or any entity associated with this broadcast. This episode, a recap of election 2020, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, unless you've been living under a rock for the last, I would say, 7 to 14 days, you now know that Vice President Joe Biden and California Senator Kamala Harris are now President and Vice President-elect. The announcement came this past Saturday as Pennsylvania called in their votes and gave the majority to Joe Biden, which put him at 279 Electoral College votes, more than enough for him to win the election.
CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term. We're able to make this projection because CNN projects Biden wins Pennsylvania. The former vice president in his third run for the highest office, pulling off a rare defeat of a sitting commander-in-chief. With this victory, Kamala Harris is set to become the first woman and the first person of color to be the vice president. Again, CNN projects Joe Biden will become the 46th president of the United States. And Jake, he is now President-elect Joe Biden.
What a moment in history.
He became a man of uncommon empathy, a man of great resilience, a man of simple decency, character traits that he will now bring to the office of the President of the United States. Elected at the age of 77, the oldest man ever elected president, he will occupy the Oval Office starting January 20th. In Wilmington, Delaware, the ultimate prize after a lifetime in politics.
George, for Joe Biden, this is the end of a 30-year quest for the presidency.
NBC News now projects that Joe Biden has won the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, and its 20 electoral votes.
And that means we can now project that former Vice President Joe Biden has been elected President of the United States. He is President-elect Joseph Robinette Biden at 77 years old. Chuck, we'll turn to you. This map is a real interesting one, not necessarily the path that anyone thought would have unfolded, but here we are.
Here we are. Look, we got just enough vote in order to call Pennsylvania, even if it may slip into a recount. We think there's just mathematically nearly impossible for the order of finish to change in Pennsylvania. And when you look at it in many ways, Joe Biden won with somewhat traditional map. In the Midwest, he rebuilt the blue wall, and narrowly, but he did it.
To say that this is one of the craziest elections of any lifetime would be an understatement, because even though the apparent winner is Joe Biden, there's still some craziness coming out of the Trump administration. For one, we're headed for 2 senatorial runoffs in the state of Georgia. So 2 more Senate seats are up for grabs, okay? 2, Donald Trump and his administration have been filing a series of lawsuits challenging the results of the election. They even took a suit to the Supreme Court this past week, and the justices were like, nah, dog, you don't have anything here. Trump has vowed that he is not going away quietly, that there will be no peaceful transfer of power, and that in the remaining days that he has left, he is going to do anything and everything he can to cause as much havoc as he possibly can before January 20th. Now, the actual votes won't be certified until December 13th, so that gives Trump and his cronies plenty of time for mischief. And if you've been watching the news, they've already started. There are only 4 Republicans that are actually acknowledging that Biden and Harris are the president and vice president-elect. Everyone else is going along with Trump's denial. And it's for a deliberate reason. What they're trying to do is rile up Trump's base in order to affect the runoff election in Georgia. So far, the senatorial seat count is tied, okay? If the Democrats manage to get those 2 seats out of the state of Georgia, that gives them a 1-seat majority, which means that Mitch McConnell is no longer the majority leader and becomes essentially powerless. All the legislation that's sitting on his desk will finally be dealt with. Speaking of which, President-elect Biden has already vowed to sign executive orders counteracting 4 of Trump's orders already. He's going to bring back the DACA program. He's going to shut down the attempts to avoid the Affordable Care Act. We're going to rejoin the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Accord. So that's right off the bat. He's already forming a COVID-19 task force in order to do what the Trump administration simply failed to do. And as the COVID cases continue to rise, they're estimating that we could end up with 200,000 cases a day. That's how bad it's gotten. So if you haven't gotten tested, find out where your local facilities are and get tested. It's no joke. Speaking of the COVID cases, how ironic was it that Trump himself, Melania, Barron, and his entire cabinet just about all were diagnosed with COVID-19. Most recently, Housing Secretary Ben Carson was diagnosed. And you know that Herman Cain passed away from it. All because they didn't want to wear a mask, and all because Trump continued to downplay this virus, even after he caught it, and he is still downplaying it. Went to all sorts of rallies holding these super spreader events. How irresponsible was that? So, as it stands, the Biden-Harris administration are already planning their transition. Trump and his team are not going to make it easy for him. In fact, they are refusing to cooperate in any way, shape, or form. Not to worry, though, because all of this means absolutely nothing. Come high noon on January 20th, Donald Trump is no longer the president of the United States. And in a statement released by the Biden camp, the United States government is more than capable of dealing with, quote, trespassers. So don't be surprised if Donald Trump and his crew get dragged out of the White House, literally. And you know that Trump is scared because you know what's facing him, right? Prosecution from the Southern District of New York. Dude has been running a mafia organization out of the White House, and Trump's worst nightmare is about to come to pass because you know how he is with women, black women especially. Letitia James, who is the Attorney General of the state of New York, is waiting to get in Trump's behind. Several criminal charges, several indictments are waiting for Trump and his entire family. So he could be going from the White House to the jailhouse. So his orange behind may well be sporting an orange jumpsuit. That has got to be the main motivation behind his reluctance to give up the White House. Couple that with, you remember the impeachment, right? That case isn't closed. Trump can actually be criminally charged for things that he has done as president as soon as he leaves the White House. So he thought he got away with a bunch of stuff, but nah, Get ready for inmate Trump. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. So you remember that huge tax break that a lot of us got, right? Right. You know, the one that benefited the 1%. You and I got very little of it. That's going to come back to haunt him. His relationships with Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un are also going to come back to haunt him. In fact, I would not be surprised if Donald Trump were tried for treason at some point. It could very well happen. Now, despite all of this craziness going on, there are some things that need to be examined about this election, okay? The fact that 70 million people voted for a racist, homophobic, misogynist piece of crap like Donald Trump speaks very ill of this country and its racial problems. The fact that Donald Trump managed to get 20% of the black male vote is also a huge, huge problem, and it doesn't bode well for the Democrats. And you know what? That's something we're going to get into right after this. If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. If you're listening to this program right now, this is where you'd hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your commercial is professionally produced and gets a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshots Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program unlike anything else in the marketplace. Episodes are available for download on iTunes, TuneIn, and MarkDunmedia.com. And depending on how you tailor your message, the potential for new and repeat customers is that much greater. Best of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you'd like more information on how you can be a sponsor of this broadcast, call Mark Gunn Media Inc. at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or log on to markgunmedia.com. For downloads of this and past episodes and information about all the multimedia services we offer, log on to our website at www.markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com. Welcome back to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. I am Mark Gunn. This episode, Election 2020, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In the last segment, I told you that Donald Trump managed to get 20% of the black male vote. 20%. Now, this speaks to something that I talked about years ago as far as the Democratic Party is concerned. You've heard all election season for the last couple of years how black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party. That is going to prove again to be true. Now, here's the problem. There's a very serious disconnect between the Democratic Party and black men. People like Roland Martin even talked about this last year. The DNC and a lot of local Democratic parties are not talking to the brothers. You're not talking to us. You are assuming that the majority of us are going to follow the voting patterns of the women in our lives. While that may be true to a certain extent, you're still ignoring the needs of black men and your black male constituents. This is why Donald Trump was able to get 20% of black men to vote for them. And there was a small percentage of black women that voted for him, too. One of the reasons? They bought into this phony conservative argument that Trump has about how religious he is. All right, you remember that stunt show he pulled in front of the church in Washington, D.C., right? Where he held up the Bible upside down. Some of you bought into that load of crap. And again, the DNC, the Democratic Party, is not addressing the issues and the needs of black men. Kanye West, Ice Cube, 50 Cent. Why are these brothers dealing with Donald Trump? 50 said it was because of taxes. Okay, I get it. The largest tax boondoggle in history was laid out by Trump a few years ago where, we were supposed to get a lot of money back on our taxes, but it only benefited the 1%. Some of them fell for that hook, line, and sinker. You were suckers. So here's where the Democratic Party is also going to be in trouble. As it stands right now, as of this recording, we're going to have a divided Congress, okay? Republicans will maintain control of the Senate, just depending on how the two runoff races come in January. And the Democrats will barely keep control of the House. As a matter of fact, they lost seats. Here's the thing. With everything this president and his administration has done, everything from all the racial dog whistle blowing, the failed economy, the way that they mishandled COVID, the bad trade deals that caused our farmers to suffer, all the stupid mistakes, self-inflicted gunshot wounds that Donald Trump and his administration fell for, you fell for it. Come on. This election was supposed to be a clean sweep for Democrats, okay? All they needed was 4 seats in the Senate to get control. Right now, they have a net gain of 1. And they lost seats in the House that they've controlled forever. You know what that means? It means that the Democratic Party, on a national level, needs to rethink its drink. It is woefully out of touch with the needs of black people. And it's woefully out of touch with the needs of most Americans. All right, so you heard folks like AOC and some of the younger Democrats, right? Talking about the Green New Deal, talking about defunding the police and all this other stuff, okay? All in the middle of this racial reckoning that we're having in this country. Wrong message. The DNC has had a problem forever in its messaging. And as a marketing professional, it is absolutely disgusting and it's insulting the way that the Democratic brand is. So as long as we still have the leadership that we have at the top, Pelosi, Schumer, folks that really need to be shown the door, and as long as we have a ultra progressive wing of the party that is still making the most noise, Democrats aren't going to be able to do anything. Nothing. Squat. The only saving grace is that you've got a presidential candidate that is running as a centrist. He's been able to distance himself from the defunding the police talk, okay? Now, one of the mistakes that the DNC made in this conversation about defunding the police is that they failed to clearly articulate what that actually meant. Smart people like you and I knew that no, they didn't want to totally defund the police. What they needed to do was just reallocate some of the funds for social service agencies and the way that policing is done. For instance, if you're dealing with a domestic violence issue, you need to have a marriage counselor or some sort of counselor to accompany a police officer instead of sending in your Gestapo SWAT teams to handle the problem. Mental health issues, the same way. Defunding the police, which is a bad label to begin with, just meant a reallocation of funds so that the police aren't leaned on as heavily as they are to handle situations that they've got no business handling. The Democratic Party screwed that up in their messaging. They did not have a single cohesive message. They talked about the Green New Deal. Fine. They talked about defunding the police. Fine. They talked about anything and everything except getting this president, who is corrupt as all hell, out of office. That's where the DNC screwed up. And what's happening? They got shellacked in the down ballot races. Here in Kentucky, Amy McGrath, attractive on paper, mother, fighter pilot, served in the armed forces. On paper, she's a great candidate. And they poured something like $9 million into her campaign from outside of the Commonwealth. What happens? Mitch McConnell has a 7th term. Why? Because the Democrats are always putting up weak candidates. I said it from Jump Street. As attractive as Amy McGrath was on paper, she was simply not the one to take on Mitch McConnell. They had a star in Charles Booker, and they screwed that up because they backed the wrong horse. And frankly, Booker got into the campaign a little too late. So Pelosi and the gang in Washington, D.C. poured in all this money on a candidate that they knew could not win. As badly as Mitch McConnell has been for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, one of the absolute worst rated senators to ever serve, he is back in D.C. for a 7th term. And I lay that at the feet of the Democratic Party. Quit putting up weak candidates. Good night. All right, so that's one of the other problems that you have. So Biden gets in. We've got a divided Congress. The worst nightmare is that Mitch McConnell retains his position as the majority leader, okay? Now, one saving grace is that McConnell, like I said earlier, has expressed interest in working with Biden on some significant legislation. We will have to wait and see if that actually pans out. The other problem that you're going to have is that any legislation that the progressive wing of the party tries to pass is going to end up on McConnell's desk, nothing being done. Because it's too, quote, radical. It's not centrist enough. So the Democratic Party has to rein itself in. It has to come up with a single cohesive message, a single cohesive platform. What kind of party are you going to be? Are you going to be center left or are you going to be far left? If you're going to be far left, don't expect anything to happen for you this term. It's just not going to happen. The DNC has a bad habit of, again, putting up weak candidates and not having a single cohesive message that voters can get behind. What should have been a landslide in a lot of these senatorial races ended up being a shellacking. Ted Cruz should not have been reelected. Mitch McConnell should not have been reelected. There should be 4 to 5 more Senate seats that the Democrats have hold of, but because of your own ineptitude, you don't have them. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Coming up, white America, you've got a real serious problem. How is it that Donald Trump, as bad as he is, can get 50% of the vote? Your problem? I'll tell you about in just a minute. If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. If you're listening to this program right now, this is where you'd hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your commercial is professionally produced and gets a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshots Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program unlike anything else in the marketplace. Episodes are available for download on iTunes, TuneIn, and MarkGunMedia.com. And depending on how you tailor your message, the potential for new and repeat customers is that much greater. Best of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you'd like more information on how you can be a sponsor of this broadcast, call Mark Gun Media, Inc. at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or log on to markgunmedia.com. For downloads of this and past episodes and information about all the multimedia services we offer, log on to our website at www.markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com. Welcome back to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. I'm Mark Gunn, and this episode, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly of election 2020. As I said at the onset, a lot of this information could be old hat by the time you actually hear this. We don't know exactly what's going on just yet. Georgia, they're headed for a couple of runoffs with two senatorial candidates, and we're still waiting to hear from North Carolina, which won't be till sometime in January. Now, before the last break, I said this, and I mean this with everything in me. White America, you have a serious problem. As racist, as xenophobic, as homophobic, and it's just just one of the absolute dumbest people to ever work in the White House. Donald J. Trump. More than 50% of you voted for him anyway. You voted against your best interest. You saw your paychecks go. You saw friends and family die of COVID. Gone. Because of his ineptitude, the lies and the crap that they fooled you with. You watched too much Fox News and they bought into it. And the problem is, you have no problem with his racism or his xenophobia. This is why you're in the shape that you're in now. If America wasn't a racist country, technologically speaking, we would be 20 years ahead of where we are now. If Donald Trump wasn't so stupid, he would have left the pandemic team that President Obama put in place, and we would have a solution to COVID right now. But no, 100,000 new cases of COVID. More and more people are dying because of his stupidity and, in turn, your stupidity. Yes, I've seen some of you anti-maskers. I've seen some of you Trump supporters on the streets. You are dumb as hell. There's no other way to say it. Your need for white supremacy outweighs your common sense, outweighs your need for self-preservation. As long as those darkies don't get anything, I'm cool. That is your mindset. And even if you say to yourself, well, I don't think that way, I just think Trump has sound economic policies, that's a load of crap, and you and I both know it. Look at the economy right now. Look at the economy that he inherited. All Trump had to do was not screw things up. But the first thing he did was that multi-billion-dollar tax cut that you got very little of, but his rich friends got the majority of. Did they put that money back into employees? No. What they did with that money is they put it into stock options. They bought back stock for their companies. You didn't get squat. But hey, you're white. Trump's white. He speaks for you. No, he does not. He cannot stand the poor ground that you walk on, but you are so stupid that you buy into it. I don't get it. I don't get it. What is so star-spangled awesome about being white in America? To the fact that you vote for a man who is screwing you over on a daily basis and you're too stupid to realize it. You better pray to whatever God that you pray to that Donald John Trump is out of the White House and that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris spend the next 4 years undoing all of the crap that he's done. We've got international relationships to repair. We've got an economy to repair. We've got a pandemic that we need to get under control. And the last thing we need is the village idiot holding up progress. Oh, progress, progressive, liberal, libtard. Oh, your stupidity is so maddening, I can't stand it. I simply can't stand it. So this is your moment of reckoning. You've seen all the protests against police violence, racial injustice, social injustice going on. And you're throwing a hissy fit, talking about your right not to wear a mask, your right to be an American, and, your right to think the way that you want to think. Go ahead, think that way, and you're going to run the risk of two things happening. You're going to run up against the wrong person one day, white or black, who's going to knock your butt in the dirt, and you're going to wonder why. And two, if, and this is a big if, over the next 4 years that we're able to come together with some sort of recovery, if we're able to reestablish some semblance of our standing in this world, you're going to be left behind. This is the way you want it. This is the way you've always wanted it. Think about your own history. In the history of this country, when has white America ever sincerely wanted the best for the rest of its citizens? When has white America ever sincerely thought that racism was not a zero-sum game? If those black people, if those brown people get more rights, I'm going to lose something. That is your own stupidity. Get out of the way of your own whiteness and join the rest of us in trying to put this country back together. My God, you can't go through life being this damn stupid. You simply can't. Now, like I said, no matter how you feel about it, no matter how I feel about it, change is coming to America one way or the other. We're either going to try to put back the semblance of what this country is supposed to be, or we're going to continue down the same self-destructive path that we've been on for the last 240 years. You've already made your choice. The votes are in. There's nothing you can do about it now. But the only thing that I do hope you do, on all sides of the political spectrum, left, right, and center, is do some serious soul searching. Because as of this moment, with everything at stake, the racism that this country continues to endure and endorse is only going to hurt us. The xenophobia that we continue to endorse is only going to hurt us. We are going to become that third world country that you're so anxious about becoming because of your own stupidity. So here's the deal. I'm going to pray for the best, all right? I suggest you do the same too.
You've been listening to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. The views expressed are those of the host and guests and not reflective of any business entity or anyone associated with this broadcast. If you have any comments or want more information on how to be a sponsor, log on to our website at markgunmedia.com or call us at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Thank you for listening.
Mark Gun Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.